Continuing on from our previous video, we have loaded this file over here and we can start working with it. We can type our commands, we can save the file, we can do all sorts of stuff with this. But typically, you will not be working with a single file. You will be working with multiple files and they are going to be in some folder, and in some editors, you basically create a folder or a project and then you work with a project. Visual Studio Code does not work with projects per se. It has what are called folders, and you basically put everything in a folder and then you work with that folder. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So let's go ahead and close this file, and let's also close this welcome because we don't need it. We can go to File and click on Open Folder. Okay, so let's say you have all your code in some folder that you have a subfolder in, and then further subfolders and files within those folders. So you're going to go ahead and click on Open Folder, or obviously you can also go ahead and Command Shift P and Open Folder. Okay, so Open Folder. The first time you may have to like scroll down a little bit to find it, but then you click on Open Folder and you go to any folder that you want. For example, we have this Visual Studio Code folder over here, and I'm going to click on Open. So this, you are selecting a folder to open, not a particular file. So once you click that, you will see that the interface changes a little bit. Okay, you have the welcome screen again. Let's go ahead and close this. On the left over here, you have different panels, and this first panel is called the Explorer panel. It shows you the folder that you have just opened, which is Visual Studio Code over here. In that, I have a subfolder called SRC, and in that I have 3 files over here. Okay, so this thing is called the Explorer. We have other things over here. We're going to get to these later on. So we have these files over here. For example, I'm going to go ahead and open the test.py. So this is the file that I just saved. Again, you get the helpful thing over here. Let's go ahead and close this. Obviously, if you're working with Python, you would install the extension, so you will not be getting this annoying pop-up again and again. But for now, let's go ahead and just close it. Okay. So we have this file open over here. Let's go ahead and continue with the discussion that we were having about this lower portion over here. The first thing that you see over here, it's a bell icon which shows you the notifications which Visual Studio might have. We'll see what these are when we get to some of the extensions. This thing shows you the language mode. So Visual Studio Code does different things, or it does things differently depending on which language you're working on. For example, if you're working with HTML, it provides you different tips and different help. And if you're working with Python, it does different things. Okay, so this is the language mode. Visual Studio Code detects languages really well, but just in case it did not select the language well, you can click on this and you can select the language that you are working with. Okay, so it has all of these different options. Again, because it's the command panel, you can simply go ahead and search for this and say this is Python, or you can simply say just auto detect. Okay, so auto detect works really well. This thing, LF, is the line feed type. So if you've never seen this before, this is the difference between Mac and Linux and the Windows operating system. So when you end a line and you go to a new line, for example, I'm on this line over here, so T range, I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so that creates a new character at this location, which is essentially a new line character. So the way Windows works with this and the way Mac and Linux work with this is slightly different. So when you hit enter on Windows, it by default inserts 2 characters. One is the carriage feed, so that's the CR character, and then it also inserts the line feed. Okay, so carriage return and line feed, 2 characters are inserted. This is called the CRLF. Okay, so CR for carriage return and LF for line feed. If you've never seen this before, this might sound really weird, but this is a problem that comes along when you are working with a large scale software in which some developers are working on Mac and Linux, and some people are working in Windows. So there might be a problem over here, and different files may have different line feed characters. So the point to note over here, even if you don't understand all of this discussion, is if you are copying folders and files between different people, and different people use different types of operating systems. For example, some people use Windows and some people use Linux. You have to make sure that your characters are the same for all the files. So you sit down, everybody sits down and decides which one do you want to do. The end of line sequence, is it going to be LF or is it going to be CRLF? Decide on that and just make sure that all the files have the same thing over here. Okay, so for now, the default is LF, which most people are moving to, but depends on what you're doing. So click on this and it allows you to select the option. The Windows option, CRLF, or the Mac and Linux option, LF. Short summary of the whole story: make sure all of your files have the same thing, okay? And across all your projects, all your developers, it's the same thing. Just make sure of that, okay? This next portion over here is the encoding. So typical modern encoding for Python and most languages is UTF-8. If you want to change it for some reason, you can go ahead and select a new encoding. We're not going to do that because UTF-8 works perfectly fine. This thing over here tells you how many spaces you want for indentation. So if you worked with Python before, you would know that there is a discussion about whether when you move the cursor to the next indent, should it be a tab or should it be 4 spaces? Some people say 4 spaces are good, some people say tabs are good. Visual Studio Code does not make your decision for you. It's going to help you whichever one you want to do. For example, currently it is set to 4 spaces. If you click on this, you can set it to indent using tabs. You can also indent using spaces, and when you click that, it asks you whether you want to do 4 or 2 or 3 or however many, okay? The default is 4. If you don't know what that discussion is, it's fine. But if you do know, then you know that the option is over here. Visual Studio allows you to do this, okay? So we're going to leave this to the default again. This thing over here is the go to line/column. So line 17, currently I'm on line 17 and I'm on column 5. So this is the 5th column, okay? If you click on this, it allows you to go to a particular line. For example, if I want to go to line 25, I can simply hit 25 and enter, and I will get to line 25 over here. Okay, so line numbers are shown over here. I have arrived at line 25. Typically, we don't go to lines and columns using these things over here, but this is a good way of just looking at your code and getting a good idea of which line and which column you're on. For example, if I click on this, it says line 31, column 40, and that's really useful in most cases when you're trying to debug stuff. Okay, so that is stuff covered over here. We are leaving this over here and we're going to get to this in one of the future videos. This thing is just a search box. Again, future videos. This is your file. So we've covered almost all of this portion over here. This portion over here, we've seen the Explorer. This thing over here is the outline. So once you install the extension which handles Python, it is going to allow you to outline your file that you have currently open. For example, it's going to list all the functions that are in the file over here. If you have classes, it's also going to list that over here. So once we get to the Python code, we're going to see this outline again. Timeline shows you the changes that you've made to the file. Some basic things over here. For example, it says that the file was created 11 minutes ago, which we did in the previous video. And if you go ahead and make changes to the file and save it, that is also shown over here. Okay. So now we've covered some of the very basic things about the Visual Studio Code interface. In the next video, we are going to take a look at how you can have different files open and work with different files, and how that workflow can be really sped up by using the facilities provided by Visual Studio Code. So see you then.